Mandatory reporting. Who is required to report? Section 210 of the Missouri Revised Statute and St. Louis Public School Regulation 4730 provides that information. All teachers, principals, and other school officials, any medical employee, law enforcement, or others with responsibility for the care of children, and any other ones outlined in the Missouri law are considered to be mandatory reporters. What constitutes as child abuse or neglect? Abuse is defined as any physical injury, sexual abuse, or emotional abuse inflicted on a child other than by accident by a person responsible for the child's care, however not limited to caregivers only. Neglect is defined as failure to provide by those responsible for the care, custody, and control of the child the proper and necessary support, education as required by law, nutrition or medical, surgical needs, or any other care that's necessary for the child's well-being. Educational neglect occurs when the person responsible for a child between the ages of 6 and 16 does not enable the child to attend school. Truancy, unless facilitated by a responsible adult, is not considered educational neglect. When must a report of abuse or neglect be made? A report must always be made to the Child Abuse Division of the Division of Family Services whenever a person has reasonable cause to suspect that a child has been or may be subjected to abuse or neglect, or observes a child being subjected to conditions or circumstances which would reasonably result in abuse or neglect. Abuse need not occur at school or during school hours. Any suspicion that a child may have been the subject of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse must be reported. It requires an exercise of professional judgment, does not require conclusive proof, and no anonymous reports are allowed. Where to make up reports of suspected abuse and neglect? All district staff, regardless of position or assignment, must report all incidents to Missouri Division of Family Services via the Child Abuse Hotline. That number is 1-800-392-3738. After reporting the incident to DFS, the reporter shall immediately make their supervisor or principal aware of the reported incident. Reporters may report suspected abuse to law enforcement authorities. However, to satisfy the mandatory reporting requirements, a report must be made to DFS as well. Incidents of alleged abuse by district employees must be reported to the Human Resources Department as well. Immunity for reporting and effects of failure to report. Missouri law provides immunity to school employees against civil litigation for good faith reporting by mandatory reporters. Failing to report suspected child abuse and neglect is a Class A misdemeanor with punishment that include up to 1 year in jail and or up to $1,000 fine. Important to note that mandatory reporting obligations continue outside of work hours, including neighbors and spouses. A person who is knowingly filing a false report of child abuse no longer enjoys the statutory immunity from civil suit, and if found guilty of this Class D felony, could be punished up to 5 years in prison and or $5,000 fine. Common in divorce and child custody disputes. What information should a reporter be prepared to give? The victim's name, address, date of birth, age, sex, race, description of the family composition, description of injury and any previous injuries or instances of neglect. The reporter should also have the parent's name, address, and age, marital status, and occupation if known. The alleged abuser, you should also have their information as well, including their name, age, address, and relationship to the victim. And the reporter, you must also have your contact information, including your name, relationship to the abused, experiences that you have known that have occurred prior, and any additional information that will assist the investigation.